Hi, everyone, and welcome to another live show of the Substack Writers Salon. I'm honored to be joined today by Daoud Kuttab, a pioneering Palestinian journalist, a columnist, and advocate for independent media, who has spent decades shaping conversations around journalism and freedom of expression in the MENA region. All right, hi, Dawood. I'm so
Hello,
happy.
Yves.
Good. Thank you very much. Um, all right. I'm so glad you are here. And the topic of our conversation is independent media. And especially in the region, which is the Middle East, which it's probably difficult to publish independently. I am currently now in Amman, Jordan. You are in Amman, Jordan, and then so we've I've been observing what's happening in the publishing industry, and my understanding, Dawood, that you published a number of books independently. So if you can walk us quickly about what kind of books you published and how was your journey publishing independently in terms of dealing with Amazon or maybe other ways you did. So the floor is yours, Dawood.
Before I get into the book publishing, since you mentioned journalism, I want to tell you and your audience that in the Arab world, the press is totally free in everything except what's happening in that country. So Syria news is absolutely free when it's talking about Lebanon. And Algerian news is great when they're talking about Morocco. And Egyptian news is great about talking about any country except Egypt. And so, one of the things that you discover in the region is you often need to go to, although we have the same language, we have the same culture, we have the same, so much in common. We have the Arab League that joins us together. But the internal government structures are they put a lot of pressure. We call it often self censorship. That people are afraid often to write what is happening in their own country. Um, so some of us tend to write abroad. Some of us tend to write more in English than in Arabic because even in English, the powers to be are less controlling because they know these diplomats, they have access to other media, so they're not as worried about it unless it's in their local language. So that's the issue of the press freedom or freedom of expression in general, and of course it applies to books. I mean, the book industry suffers in our region because of this censor that is in the heads of so many people that they are afraid, they are under control, they're worried that they will be in trouble, they lose their job because there's all kinds of unwritten laws in many countries where even though you might be legal, but powers to be can make it difficult. Also, the business community, unfortunately, is largely in bed with government. So there isn't a really serious publishing industry. There's a lot of freelancers, freelance industries. And in each country, you have, publishers. But again, the only time that you see some really interesting books is when there's book fairs. And that's once a year where publishers from different countries come, and even that sometimes there is a problem. But in general, this is one of the issues that I wanted to talk about, which is the atmosphere. For a writer, it's very important to have a free environment so that you can write freely. The environment has an effect on what you write and what you don't write. What you write in English, then what you write in Arabic, and so on. I mean, this is in general. In our world, I hate to say this, we don't read books. We're not good book readers. We don't have the culture of you sit in a subway in New York City and you see everybody with a book reading. We don't have that culture. People somehow, I think they love the internet and their phones because it's short, paragraphs and tweets and all that. and I don't know why, but we don't have the patience and the luxury of sitting on a beach and reading a book, or sitting at home and reading a book. It's
Hmm.
not so much in our culture. I mean, I don't know if your parents or your family reads a lot of books, but I have a hard time convincing people who are close to me to read a book. They will read an article, they'll read a Facebook post or a Twitter post, but reading books is not a very serious part of our culture, except for people who are ideological. The ideological people are avid readers, but they read again in a very kind of closed way. They read books about the ideologies and philosophies of people that they follow, and so you have that. And you go to any book fair today in the Arab world, and you see the biggest kind of books are Islamic ideological books. That's whether for or
Hmm.
against, whatever that's the prevailing ideology. There is, of course, leftist writers and liberal writers and so on. But if you go to a book fair, you'll see a lot of Islamist books, supporting, against, talking about profiling Islamist leaders, talking about Hamas, talking about Islamic Jihad, talking about um, uh, Hezbollah, and all the ideologies behind them. And it's good reading, but it's a very limited reading. The other problem we have, before you ask,
Yeah.
is that we have a terrible absence of very good um, critics, book critics. Okay,
Hmm. Okay.
so as a result, the good is mixed with the bad. And so you ask people to read, and they say, I've tried a few books and they were terrible, and they were. And there are a lot of really bad books. In fact, if you go to almost any publishing house in the Arab world, they don't buy your ideas. They actually ask you to pay for publishing your own book. And so there is no real seriousness in searching for a good book, in getting a good editor to edit the book. And a lot of the writers are also very um, close-minded. They don't want anybody to edit their books. Their books have to be exactly the way they wrote them. There's a holy grail around their books, and so we have a problem in the different areas. So I've been a journalist for, as you said, 40 some years, and it took me a long time to write my first book. And the first book is actually right behind me. It's called Sesame Street Palestine, and I was the executive producer of the Sesame Street in Palestine. And it came right after the Oslo Accords, where everybody was talking about peace and we should teach children coexistence and so on. And then, as the peace process faltered, our program faltered, and the money stopped coming. Hello? Oh,
Yeah, yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Yeah.
the screen turned black for some reason.
Okay, that's fine.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so our Sesame Street funding stopped completely. Actually, we were in the third series, third season, and we had a letter from USAID saying they will support us for another season for something like $2 million or whatever. And then the PLO went to the UN to declare a Palestinian state, and all of a sudden, Congress stopped the funding. And so I wrote a book explaining how the actual TV series of children reflected the actual life of Palestinians. And I found a good publisher in the US to publish this book. So that was my first book. It took me a long time. After that, I became interested in writing more. And actually, it all started after October 7th,
Mm.
current series of books. And the I wrote an op-ed on October 9th, 2 days after October 7th, in the Washington Post. And I gave it a very interesting title. I said, um, the way to end this whole violence in the Middle East is for the US to recognize Palestine. And everybody thought, it's crazy. And my comment was the following, that uh, what is happening in Palestine, Israel, didn't start on October 7th. it has been 75 years in the making. The refugees, the occupation, the siege on Gaza, the 10 years without any political process. And so it was a kind of a burst of anger because of so long there was no political horizon. And in time, I realized that what I had written there, it was my last paragraph, and I said, "What's my call to action in this op-ed?" So I wrote, that the U.S. should recognize Palestine as the fastest way to bring peace to the Middle East. And then I realized that nobody, even though everybody gives lip service to the state of Palestine and Palestine's two-state solution, nobody actually has written a book about why it's important now, after all that happened in
Mm.
so anyway, that was my book, and the third book was when I was celebrating 25 years of the community radio I started in Jordan called Amman Net, and I thought that was the time to. I was about to retire, and I thought that would be the right time to write a book about this experiment that we started when people were on the internet. I don't know if you remember, Natasha. We used to call up the internet and we hear
Yeah, I do
hear
remember. Yeah,
and
I'm that old. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
so it was then that we started Ammanat as an internet radio when few people were listening to the internet. But then we eventually got a license and an FM license and so on. And so I wrote about that experiment and all the troubles that I went through, both positive and negative. So that's my personal kind of story about book writing.
that's fascinating. So Dawood, I think my main question now is the actual process. I've talked with a number of aspiring authors and clients who who are based in the Middle East and they want to self-publish. And in addition to the political climate that you explained, what are the actual steps? My understanding that any book that you need to self-publish, and let's say the Jordan, you have to get permission from like the publication department. Is that correct? Because for me, I self-published 3 books. I did not get permission from anyone. I hired editors, hired designers, typesetter. I was more invested in sort of the technical team, not kind of the legality of the book. And I submitted it to KDP. They approved it. So the only kind of like I mean, not legal step, but kind of technical step of approval was the approval of Amazon to make sure that its content does not violate their guidelines, and
Yeah.
that was the only step of approval. So if you're based in a country of the Middle East and you want to do the same process that I did, are you saying there's an additional step to what I did?
Look, I published with an American publisher. I published self-published, and I
Okay.
published in Jordan. So I have different
Okay.
experiences. As you said, in the U.S., the U.S. publisher, MENA, they were very good. They did the proofreading. They changed a few things. We talked about the cover page. We talked about the headline, the name, and we did the rest. That was very easy, and we got an ISBN number, and
Yeah.
the book was published, and it was distributed. It didn't do very well, but it's there, and I got my copies to give to people and so on, and that was a kind of a history. I wanted to write that history. The State of Palestine book, I had the problem with most publishers because the time they take to publish your book is between 6 months to a year. So if you find
Okay.
any serious publisher, it takes a long time. And
Okay.
I felt that the story on the Palestine need to be done quickly, and so I took a chance and I went to Amazon, like you said, and I published on Amazon, and it's done okay, nothing great. I actually translated the book and got some people to read so it's available in German, in French, and German, French, and Spanish. And I wanted to do the Italian version when I ran to a friend of mine, an Italian, and he said, "Dawood, I'll help you translate it, but let me see if I can find you a publisher." And he found a publisher with a 2 month wait. So, they were very quick. And this was the book. Um,
Hmm.
but what made the book interesting is that Stefano, my friend who translated the book, is an avid supporter of Palestine, and so he contacted all kinds of organizations in Italy, and I was supposed to do a tour in Italy. And 2 weeks before the tour, the war in Iran began, and all the airlines were stopped. But we decided to continue with the tour, but virtually. So he was in Italy, I was in Jordan, and I was doing the tour. And it was great because I I taped a summary of the book on video, and they put the subtitles in Italian so they can learn more about the book. And I would answer questions, and people would buy the book. And after 6 or 7 meetings in local places, I was told there was about 800 copies sold, which is really good for a book, I'm told. My publisher said if you reach 1,000, then it's a big success. So we're almost there. And I'm supposed to go to Rome in June again, maybe to go to the parliament and to meet other people in Italy again. So I realized that, as you always say in your tweets on all the time on Substack, you need to keep the book alive, keep
Mhm.
talking about the book, because that's what sells books. That's what gets people to buy books. And I didn't do enough in the English, but with the Italian version and these town hall meetings, if you want to call them, has been a big success. So back to your question, for my Amman book, the Arabic version was a much more sanitized version. Nobody asked me to do this. It just that there was expectation it would cause me trouble, and the publisher got that permission and published it, and then
Mm.
that's fine.
Okay.
But yes, you need to get authorization. In Jordan, they actually canceled what is called the pre-censorship. Okay,
Ah, okay. That's
it's
good. Okay.
you don't need to get permission, but there's post censorship, which is that if your book is out and somebody complains or whatever, then they can stop you. Or I don't know exactly how it works, but by law, there's apparently no pre censorship. Now, if you are importing books, then there is censorship on importing books.
I see. Okay. So, what about the issue of print on demand? So, when you publish in the Arab world, Amazon which is so. What I do is I don't have stacks of books and I sell them individually. Is I just put the Amazon link, and people go to Amazon, and Amazon prints on demand and give you the book. So, since Amazon is not widely available in places in the Middle East, how does the print on demand option for Amazon works for someone who's based in the Middle East? Or do
I
you have
don't
to go to a
I don't think it works. I've had very little. I know that people have told me they tried to buy my book in Jordan were not able to get it delivered. So I don't know why. But apparently, Jordan is not one of the countries that Amazon delivers. I don't know if you've had the experience like this, but apparently this is a problem. I don't think anybody has actually tried to fill this gap.
Yeah,
Again, you probably need to get government permission. TikTok is not allowed in Jordan. Uh,
yeah, I know.
uh, Again, because the TikTok company, according to the Jordanian officials, has refused to accept certain issues that Jordan has put on TikTok, especially with nudity and pornography and so on. So they say, and so TikTok is not allowed. I think for Amazon to be allowed, I think they would have to pass this high bar of what kind of content is allowed. And apparently, it's not a big market, and so Amazon didn't even bother.
So, independent publishers or self-published authors, do they have to actually go to a printing press themselves with the book and print it and then distribute it manually? So how did you print your books? The
Look,
state of Palestine.
there are publishers who will take care of the cover, who will take care of the printing, who will take care of the copy editing if need be, and they'll get you the ISBN. But by and large, you have to pay. So you basically
Mm.
hire them. They will put it on their roster and they will put it on their online. And when
Okay.
there's book fairs, they'll put your book among other books, and you have to wait and see how it sells. But basically, there's no advance, and the opposite. You have to give them money to
Yeah.
cover
Yeah.
their risk. Basically, they say we have no idea how the book will do. There's not enough experience um, to know that this book will do well. I mean, I'm told that the two kind of books that do well are school books and what's the other? There's another, I think, um, very sensual drama or whatever, fiction.
Mm.
But other than that, the book publishers tell me that they're not willing to take a chance on any book.
Mm.
And therefore, you have to take the risk by paying the cost. And if the book sells, then they'll give you a percentage. But it's not. They don't publish for you. They don't believe in that you can your book will sell.
Hmm.
So you have to take the risk.
And how do you take the risk? So, is there any way you can do it on your own without going to these people?
Yes, you can
Completely on
take
your own.
manuscript. Well, there's a national library, مكتبة
Okay.
الوطنية, and
Yeah.
you need to go there to get the what is called the ISBN. I don't know if you know it.
Mm.
It's the international number.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's the only thing you need from the government is the ISBN number, and then the publisher, a printer,
And a
will.
printer will print it.
Yeah, if they, I mean, if they don't know you and they're afraid, they will not do it. But if they know you, or they see the book is not controversial or whatever, they will publish it for you.
Okay. But can you buy an ISBN online? Because I buy my ISBN online. Is there a way you can do it for
Um, I
Jordanian
don't
or
know.
books?
I don't know for Jordan. I don't know what
Yeah.
policies for Jordan.
Yeah, it's interesting because, as you noted, there's a big gap when it comes to. So basically, independent publishing, it's still not fully independent. You still have a lot of hoops, and you still have to go through some sort of a printing machine, a physical printing machine, to actually print the book.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
the publishers do it for you. I mean, you don't have to go to the,
correct,
but
correct.
basically you're paying them in advance and you're paying them for doing the cover and for the copy editing and copyright, checking spelling mistakes and so on. And the formatting, you pay for that to the publishers. Basically, the publishers help you with the cover and with just copy editing and the copy
Hmm.
spelling the check, spell check, and so on.
So for anyone in let's say in Jordan, you have to have physical copies in your like basement or whatever, or in your extra
I
room,
should show you
and and
my I show you
and
the
distribute
cardboards in my
and
in my
and distribute.
office.
Yeah, see, that is like, that's for me would probably deter me from self-publishing, because I won't be able to guarantee that I would actually sell these. You don't have the guarantee, right? And so the beauty of print on demand, which, as I'm realizing, this is a gap that needs to be filled in the Middle East, and this is, I think, $1 million idea if we
We get
can implement
Amazon.
it.
Let's do it.
Exactly.
Let's write
It's
an appeal to Amazon to have
Yeah, exactly.
an
Is
Arab
is
branch, and you can run that branch.
Yeah, so the idea is I don't have that risk. So people just go to Amazon, Amazon prints it on demand and ships it to them. So I don't have any extra inventory sitting somewhere in my extra room gathering dust if my book does not sell well. So that's gonna eliminate the risk. So like, what are you telling me now is that it's basically how self-publishing was 20 years ago, before the advent of KDP. And KDP was, for those who's listening and they don't know what KDP is, it's Kindle Direct Publishing, which is part of Amazon, is solved that issue for many people. But I think there's a lot of room for improvement in places like Jordan and probably other countries in the Arab world.
Yeah,
Before
and
we
there's
can,
the
yeah,
marketing of the book also. I mean,
correct,
the
correct,
KDP, it doesn't do the marketing. So
correct.
most publishers in the U.S., Simon Schuster, they do the marketing, and that's why books sell. And they take it to Barnes and Noble, and they put your books there, and so on.
I mean, it depends if you're a big author. If you're a small
Of course,
author, they'll hire an intern, and you still have to do the
if they
marketing
take your
yourself.
book, they
Correct.
usually will turn your
And
book
you need
down.
an agent and all of that.
Yeah.
But quickly before we go, I'm curious, why do you think your book sold well in a country like Italy? Why is Italy interested in the issue of Palestine now, and why is it more successful like than, let's say, in other places?
Well, I think a number of things. I think there is a strong solidarity movement in Italy with Palestine. Italy is part of the Mediterranean. Italians and Palestinians. There's a lot of connections and relationships. And the second thing I think is that the present prime minister is a very right wing woman who's not who's totally against. The Palestinians, until recently, were supplying arms to Israel. She recently stopped that. So I think it's more of a solidarity support than. But people who bought the book, I mean, I think having these town hall meetings has been the biggest success of the book because they're meeting the author, they're talking, they're asking questions, they're learning more about the book, and so that creates the excitement you need for a book to start being sold.
Hmm. Well, fascinating. Are you thinking of trying other countries like Spain? Because Spain now is also very
I
interested in the
am. I am actually also because of all of Latin America is really supporting Palestinians. So I'm looking for a hook with some groups or some publishers in Spain for the book. Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
wow. Well, wish you the best of luck. And before we conclude, I'd like to announce. But of course, we're gonna have replay of this, and I'm gonna send it to my the people who are on my newsletter. And also, we're here joined by Stefano Nani. Is that the same Stefano you mentioned, or is that a different Stefano?
I
I
don't
have.
know.
Okay, we have hi Stefano. Thank you for joining us.
If it's
If you have,
Stefano Nani, it's the right one. I don't know how many Stefanos we have.
we have Stefano Nani here
That's
joining
that's
us.
that's my
That's
man. That's
okay.
who
Hi
translated
Stefano.
my book.
Okay. Hi Stefano. Nice to meet you. Please feel free to ask any question. Um, and I think before we conclude, I'd like to announce that Dawood and I will be starting a new publication on Substack. It's called Two Arab Journalists, One Levant. We're two Arab journalists who watch the media, observe the media. We also look at social media, and I'm based in the Washington D.C. area. Dawood is based between Jerusalem and Amman, and I think with both of us, we have a lot to talk about the media coverage, some certain topics that um, are important to a lot of people. And I'm going to be putting on my journalist hat for this publication. And it's going to be fun. It'll be half an hour every week, and stay tuned for more info. And yeah, go ahead, Dawood.
I wanted to do this for a long time, but I don't have the ability and the skills that you have. So, uh, thank you for making this offer. I'm happy to talk and discuss, and I promise the viewers and listeners that they will get interesting. Unpublished information and unpublished new angles to the issues that they're hearing on the main media. We'll try to we'll not give you news as much as analysis. We'll try to give
Mm,
you a different point of view. You're listening to two Arabs in one Levant, so you'll get the Arab point of view, the Levant point of view, if you want, from Palestine, from Jordan, from the region, as well as how the U.S. policy and U.S. foreign policy in Washington is affecting our country in where we live and so on, our friends and our people. So it will be fun. It will be interesting. It will be mostly politics, but we'll do also some culture. We'll do some art. We'll do some maybe even talk about sports when the World Cup comes
nice.
around. So there will be different things. And I will let you know what people are saying in the cafes, in the breakfast tables, dinner tables in Arab homes. And we'll see. We'll see how Natasha and I will work out. But we are similar. We're different. We come from similar backgrounds, but we are also um, have different points of view, and I think you will see that there will be complementariness between us. So I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. And I'll give you the suburban mom perspective, which is basically, and the suburban moms are powerful. They vote as well. So
Yeah.
I'll tell you what the suburbs is saying, if they're actually even paying attention to the news, which is something like people keep telling me, what are people thinking in the US about what's happening? And most of the time is like, honestly, people are so worried about their own lives. They're not following the news as we think they are. But anyways, we'll be watching the replay
Anyway,
of.
um,
Uh, thank
look
you very
forward.
much.
You
Yeah.
died. You froze for a while. I don't know what
Oh
happened.
yeah, I did. Oh yeah, it's probably, yeah, the
The
connection here,
internet.
but the internet. But it's okay.
So
We roll with
stay
the punches.
tuned.
Stay
Stay
tuned.
tuned. Natasha and Daoud from the Arab world, from Levant, from Washington, from Al Quds, Jerusalem, from Amman. You'll get different points of view.
Excellent. Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks everyone, and until we meet again. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.